Ryan steps up in the pocket. Matt pumps, runs, 10, 5. Does he score? He does. A rushing touchdown for Matt Ryan. Jones to catch for it. Flag down midfield. Julio into Green Bay territory. A stiff arm at the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Atlanta. Ryan throws end zone. Jones caught it all the way through. Touchdown Atlanta. Dan Quinn in year 2 has taken Atlanta to the Super Bowl.
Nope, you weren't watching Madden. You were watching the Falcons offense put up video game numbers, dropping 44 on the Packers defense in their last game in the Georgia Dome. Matt Ryan looking like the MVP. He had 4 pass TDs and 1 rush TD. Max, what was your takeaway from the NFC Championship?
Aaron Rodgers, the best player in football.
Oh, my God.
And I knew that today would be the day that people would come out and say, see, people who somehow don't pay attention say, see, look, Tom Brady won and look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers took a team. And by the way, I picked the Falcons to win by 10. And I said on Friday, the only way Aaron Rodgers wins this game is if it's like you're a little kid. You throw the Nerf ball in your room, you throw it, and you catch it. You dive into the bed catching it, and you somehow do both, like with the Odell catch, and you can play special teams too. He can't do all those things. He took a terrible team when you really look at it, with no secondary, completely banged up, 0 running game, every receiver hurt. He took him to the NFC Championship game past the Dallas Cowboys, who for most of the year were the best team in football, or at least in the NFC. He took them there practically by himself. And if you look at this game, not his fault the field goal kicker misses the first field goal attempt from 41 yards. Not his fault that the fullback fumbles on his way into the end zone. Should have been at that point a 10-10 game. Not his fault that no one showed up to tackle, that the secondary didn't want the ball when Matt Ryan gave it to him a couple of times in the red zone. None of those things are Aaron Rodgers' fault, or that all his receivers kept dropping passes. Now, he wasn't as accurate as he sometimes is. He was throwing a little bit low at times, but they were hitting the receivers in the hands. You got to make that play. This is the NFL. You got to make those plays. And by the end of the game, a bad game for Aaron Rodgers is almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, which on 3rd and very long, pinned back, he said, to hell with it, this is kind of like a punt. That was not like a careless play. It was taking a shot because at that point they were trailing by so much. Aaron Rodgers now, by the way, has the second most 3-touchdown playoff games in history. 2 behind Brady and Montana, who played in many, many more games than him.
All right. Let me just go ahead and just stop the violin playing. Listen, we know about the greatness of Aaron Rodgers, but let's give a little bit of love to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a guy who I think he's now proven that he's at upper echelon of quarterbacks. He's put himself in the first tier of quarterbacks, and he will be rewarded contract-wise later on as we go. But here's a quarterback that came into the playoffs with a black cloud over his shoulder. I've talked to a couple of the players that have played with Atlanta and Matt Ryan. The thing about the fans of Atlanta, they're still loving the Michael Vick experience and haven't followed any other quarterback after Michael Vick because they just didn't feel confident that they can get it done. Now they have a quarterback finally that they can rally behind. He has an offensive coordinator who's up for a head coaching job, which I think he should stay in Atlanta and not take the San Francisco job. But they have all pieces in place. You have a slot receiver in Gabriel. You have a solid tight end. You have 2 running backs that can run the football and a stud and wide receiver. Matt Ryan has now proven that he can continue to win games when you need him to do that. And the comfort and support cast that he has with the defense, with special teams, with the coaching staff, they have to all follow in place with them. I think we learned that this Matt Ryan quarterback in the NFL is the guy that we need to follow.
What I took away from the conference championship games, aside from the greatness of Tom Brady and something that you got to pay attention to moving forward because you know he's on his own mission, the guy I took away from is Julio Jones. We've talked all year long about Antonio Brown. The receivers. No, let me explain. We talked all year long about Antonio Brown. We've talked all year long about Odell Beckham Jr. I'll get into Julio Jones a little bit later on with my final take. But what I want to say about this, I'm looking forward. when I think about those championship games, I had no choice but to look forward to the Super Bowl because it was a disappointment. It was an annihilation. It wasn't competitive. I mean, the best game of these players were the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. You were hoping that the conference championship game would be something of that ilk. So it was deflating to watch games where, even though, for the example with the Steelers in New England, even though it was 17-9, you knew it was over when the Steelers couldn't get the ball in the end zone and they had to settle for a field goal. I was disgusted. And we all saw what happened to Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay just in the first half alone. And so when we look at it, I had no choice but to look ahead. And when looking ahead, I looked at Julio Jones. And I saw that 73-yard touchdown, that catch and run for the 73-yard touchdown. I saw strength. I saw size. I saw athleticism.
Speed.
I saw
Physicality.
speed. I saw physicality, pass catching ability. And I'm saying when stuff breaks down, Matt Ryan could literally throw it up. And unlike the Steelers, unlike the Giants, Matt Ryan has the luxury, in case of emergency, of literally throwing the ball up, and you have somebody with the physicality to go up and simply get it. And I'm saying to myself, how are you going to stop this man?
With turf toe.
With turf toe.
he's playing hurt.
And so for me, all I'm saying, Max, is I looked at that because I'm craving a game. I'm craving an epic matchup. And we all know that we can trust that New England's going to show up. Julio Jones, even more so than Matt Ryan. Obviously, he's throwing Matt Ryan the football. But Julio Jones is that guy that made me sit back and say, this is going to be special because they got to figure out a way to stop this, brother.
Now, I think Odell can do that and Antonio Brown in his own way. But the bottom line is, Odell, there was a distraction, in Florida, the whole thing, and then he showed up and he was dropping passes. Antonio Brown didn't exactly set the world on fire yesterday. Julio Jones keeps his head down, doesn't create any headlines, and then when it comes time to balls. He now must be recognized, if he wasn't already, as the best receiver in football.
No
I agree
question.
with you.
And I think Matt Ryan deserves the MVP this year. Wanted to focus more on Aaron Rodgers, though. After that brutal loss, he's looking at the glass half full.
I still feel pretty young. I think I have a number of years left in me. I can play at a high level. We just got to make sure we're going all in every year to win. And I think we can take a big step this offseason. But I don't think we need to rebuild. We need to reload. We got a lot of players who are young, who are big contributors for us. We just need to reload a little bit this offseason. And I think we had a lot of great contributions this season from guys we didn't really expect starting the season out.
So Rodgers staying optimistic, Stephen A. He's 33 years old. Do you agree with him that the Packers window is still open in terms of championships?
It's still open because they have him. And because they have him, because he is who he is, and you're thinking Jordy Nelson's going to be healthy next year with the Randall Cobb, and, Devontae Adams is coming to his own. They have some receivers. They have to buffer their running game. Clearly, Eddie Lacy wasn't somebody they could rely upon. He got hurt.
He was buffered.
He was buffered.
Yeah.
He was buffered
First he was buffered, then he was hurt.
Okay, no question. So you have that issue, and then you got Ty Montgomery, who's really a receiver that was playing running back and actually did a decent job for the most part. But the point is that that's on the offensive side of the ball. Defense is where their Achilles heel lies. This might be the most atrocious secondary that I have seen in years when I watched Green Bay several times this year. Yeah, they showed up a little bit against Dallas, even though Dallas came on in the second half. We saw how Washington ran right at them, which is when they started their winning streak immediately thereafter. But you look at these guys, whether it's a Gunther, whether it's a Ha-Ha Clinton Dix, or whomever else is back there, Hyde and the crew, they were collectively, I'm not highlighting any individuals, collectively, they were god-awful. And I don't care how good you are as a quarterback. You cannot have a secondary that can be shredded at will. That cannot happen. So for me, whether it's Ted Thompson, it's the coach McCarthy, or both, whatever, you have got to buffer that defense and make sure that you can get stops. So, because if you give Aaron Rodgers opportunities, he's going to make something happen.
Let me add to that. He continued to say in his press conference that they need to focus and be their first focus being Jared Cook, their tight end. He needs to come back, which is absolutely right.
He got locked down yesterday, though.
Well, but the whole thing about it is in that offense, he can be a special weapon for Aaron Rodgers. And he can see that. Exactly. His speed, his size, his hands. The thing that I look at is this the time to think about trading Clay Matthews? Clay Matthews has battled a lot of injuries. He's not the same Clay Matthews from early part of his career. You got Julius Peppers, who's getting older as well. On that defense, we know so much about the secondary and what they need to do there. You're not bringing in a Charles Woodson again. You don't have guys that you could put at the quarterback position to be physical. So let's start with the interior part of that defense. Let's start with their linebacking core. Let's move on to their defensive line. I think it's important that they bring in a big-time free agent at the defensive end to be able to apply pressure. I think their tackles are pretty good. You need to also bring in another linebacker, a stud linebacker who can flow sideline to sideline, and then you go to the quarterback position. I like Ha Clinton Dix. I think he's one of the top corners or safeties in the NFC.
Yeah.
Very rewarded of that. But I think when you look at this team, it starts with their defense, and then you go over to the offensive skill positions like a running back or maybe bringing in another wide receiver to help that offense. But I don't think the window is closing. I think this is a great opportunity for them to revamp that team, not to reload or to rebuild, revamp it, bring in some vets, young vets who can come in and play and get pressure on the quarterback.
Stephen A's answer was correct in that they have a window of opportunity so long as Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. As long as he's still Aaron Rodgers, and given when the elite quarterbacks tend to fall off, he should have at least 5 more years barring injury. They got a shot at the Super Bowl every year. This was a terrible team that he dragged to the NFC Championship game. But that's part of the problem. Well, why doesn't he advance to the Super Bowl more often? Because the team has no business getting as far as they did. Look, because the team wasn't any good, except for Aaron Rodgers. Now, they have some good offensive line, players on the offensive line. They have no running game. Eddie Lacy first got fat, then got hurt. The receivers were all injured. The secondary's no good. So he somehow drags the team there, then gets by a brutal Giants defense, a lot of body shots in that game, injured them, took guys off the field and made them less than they were going forward. Same thing in the Dallas game. I mean, this is why you want to buy in the first round. Then you got to go on the road to play maybe the hottest team in the NFL, the Falcons, in a diminished state when you weren't that good to begin with. What do they need to do to optimize Aaron Rodgers' chances to win another Super Bowl, which I think he'll do before the end of his career? You need to draft a corner. First round, you need to get
They've
talent
been drafting
at corner.
corners.
You need more talent in the secondary. You got to go sign a free agent safety. You got to figure out running back. I hear what you're saying about the linebacker position and a defensive end, but I think the most pressing thing is that secondary and the running game. If you had a little more in the secondary and the running game, who knows? They got a lot of holes. Aaron Rodgers covers for a lot of them.
Yeah, but we talk so much about the secondary. Look, I mean, most of the teams that are continuing on who have played in this playoff, they haven't had dominant secondary play. I mean, the New England Patriots, you take Malcolm Butler out, do we really say that any of the other corners like Ryan and none of these guys, are top corners?
Ryan's elevating, though. His stock is rising.
Yeah, but is he like what we see from the Denver Broncos?
Donovan, they got
like Harris and also Talib over at the cornerback position? No, because it's about what you can do with your front seven. If your front seven, sorry about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if your front seven can apply pressure on Tom Brady, then we don't have to talk about the soft zone coverage in the back end.
I have a question about that. Yes, that's the conventional wisdom, but isn't it changing in the sense that there are so many 5 receiver sets now, et cetera? There's so much of you just beat your man to man, that you need players in the secondary who can win those matchups.
Perfect example. The New York Giants, you put so much money into your defense, but if you can't get pressure on Aaron Rodgers to sit back there for 5 to 7 seconds, I don't care if you got Deion Sanders back in the secondary. Routes are going to be rerouted, and then the guys are going to be wide open. You have to start with pressure on the quarterback, and it starts with that D-line and that linebacking core.
You got Deion Jones for Atlanta, for example. Jared Cook couldn't do anything when he was defending against Jared Cook. Plus, he put a lick on Aaron Rodgers. You have to understand. Listen, what Donovan is saying is right in this respect. We rave about Tom Brady. Tom Brady has 2 glaring Super Bowl losses, and it was not because of Eli Manning. It was because those boys put a hat on him.
Okay.
And listen,
just to be clear, so sometimes it's not about quarterback versus quarterback. There's a defense on the field, too, right?
I understand that, but what I'm saying to you
and that defense got after Rodgers yesterday.
But what I'm saying to you is that when you are a quarterback, particularly somebody like Brady who can pick you apart, you got to soften him up. That's what football is. Now, granted, he might get up. But listen, you're the one here that played quarterback, and it's unfair. Maybe you don't know because you're a big boy. Most quarterbacks aren't as big as you. And the fact is, when they get popped, they get up like, damn, I don't want to get hit like that again. I want to get. I had members of the New York Giants, Justin Tuck and the crew, telling me Tom Brady was getting up every time, cussing out his offensive linemen and stuff like that. He kept coming at us, But
that body work
he was
in
getting
early.
that body work in.
Yep.
It matters.
We got to leave it there, Donovan. So good to see you. We'll see you again on Friday. Looking forward to that.